Hello, my name is O'Neill Lawrence. I am the Chief Curator of National Gallery of Jamaica. I am here to speak with one of the co-curators of our current exhibition, Jamaica Jamaica, Sebastien Carayol, independent curator. We've had many discussions very recently about this exhibition, but I would like you to just tell me again how you came up with this exhibition project and why Jamaican musical culture.
The idea came for me as a, let's say, Jamaican music fan for many years, for 25, 30 years. And the idea came about because I realized that in Europe specifically, I come from France, we were sort of fed a certain narrative about the history of Jamaican music that's only very parcellar. And you know, from over the years, I started to discover discovering from Bob Marley, and then expanding, you discover sound system culture, you discover ska, you discover Mento. And I realized, wait, this is very important, and Bob Marley is only a part of this whole big Jamaican music sort of scene, and with many, many aspects, ritual music, secular music, that talks to social, cultural, kind of addresses sort of socio-political problems and ideas. And so to me I realized that after a while too, being a fan of this music, that writing about it, interviewing its main characters as a journalist, after a while, if you write for music magazines or reggae magazines, you only talk to people who are sort of in the know like you. So it's not counterproductive, but it's, you know, once you know, you know. And I thought an exhibition was a nice way to sort of bring people in who don't know, because it's a museum environment, and maybe they might be interested in music as a culture if they discover it through an exhibition.
Okay. This exhibition has had 3 incarnations, this being the 3rd one, of course. The first was in Paris, the second Sao Paulo, and now the 3rd in Kingston. What differed in each one of those incarnations?
Well, Paris and Sao Paulo were a bit similar because it was sort of the same exhibition traveling. From the beginning, the idea was to talk with the National Gallery, the Jamaica Music Museum, to eventually, like the ultimate goal was to bring this exhibition to Jamaica. So that was always the goal from the beginning. Bring it home, yeah, exactly. And so basically, now that we got the opportunity to make it happen in Jamaica, we've had the chance to maybe have some pieces we couldn't have in France or Brazil because, I don't know, they were too big, or shipping was, I mean, just sort of production or budget concerns, which I'm now really happy to be able to integrate more and more Jamaican items from studios, from the National Gallery, from the Jamaica Music Museum. Certain pieces couldn't travel. I'm thinking, you know, for instance, Revival Goddess Dinah by Capo. That's the one I've always wanted, but it cannot travel because it's so fragile.
Yes.
And now we're showing it, so it's very different, but it's almost more of what I wanted to have now than what I had in Paris, even if it's a lot smaller than Paris, even if the budget is less, a lot less than in Paris, Sao Paulo, but I think it's closer to what we had in mind initially, probably.
Okay, well, because I was lucky enough to see both of the previous versions. In Paris, it felt to me that it was kind of an expansion on what people knew or thought of with regards to Jamaican music. You know, more than Bob Marley, more extensive history, a lot of development, a lot more people involved. But what if you can just expand for me, because I did see some differences in Sao Paulo. What was the Brazilian influence to the exhibition?
Well, Brazil is a very big country for Jamaican music. There are even some cities, the cities of San Luis in Maranhão, it's called mini Kingston or Kingston, Brazilian Kingston, because even Jamaican artists moved there in the 70s, 80s because they felt so welcome. So the main difference was that this time, for the first time, it arrived into a country where every single person, from the director of the museum to people working, installing, they all have gone once in their life to a sound system dance, to a reggae concert. They know, they're sort of in the culture already, which was very different than Paris, because Paris, being the Philharmonie de Paris, it's a big hub for classical music, or like, let's say, rock. That the David Bowie exhibition that was very successful. But trying to convince them that Jamaican music is not only Bob Marley, it's just part of it. Trying to get beyond that, to show the innovations and inventions of this music, how it resonates in today's urban music landscape. The DJ culture, sound system culture are very present in pop music worldwide today. So once I managed to convince them that this vision was also valid, not through the main star, but to sort of telling a story, then it just came naturally. And that's why the Brazilian one was also a bit more inclusive of local culture around reggae and Jamaican music, because it was a bigger place. So we were able to build a full section about reggae in Brazil and Jamaican music in Brazil.
What was the reception like in Paris?
In Paris, it was I want to say about 60,000 people came, which is not bad at all for a 5-month exhibition. And it had a very good reception, because I have the feeling everybody in France knows so much of reggae, but it's something that's very intriguing. And they just know the cliches, and I could feel like a hunger for more. I'd like to know more, can you help me, kind of thing. And it was very, very interesting too, because as here, I could see people involved in the music are not necessarily people who usually go to museums. And so we managed to mix these crowds, of museum goers and music lovers all together in one spot. And I see this happening here as well.
Because we've been kind of touching on perspectives so far. How do you navigate one of the, and I'm going to kind of elaborate that, one of the issues that we've seen with some of the scholarship and interest around Jamaican music, when it tends a lot of perspectives that are given preference in terms of our culture generally seem to come from people from outside of Jamaica, and it's usually given some prominence in terms of its presentation and so on. Do you think that this exhibition in its previous incarnations has avoided that kind of Eurocentric, first world talking to and about, developing countries' culture? Do you think that how have you managed to navigate that?
I think the original intent from the beginning of the seed of the idea itself was to always, at every step of the exhibition, collaborate with you, with Herbie Miller, like Jamaicans, and every time being like, look, this is what I think we could be doing. Do you think it's valid? Do you think it's not my vision being deformed by being, from Europe? And to me, it was very important. It goes beyond just I would say, making an exhibition. It's also part, we were talking earlier about the whole process, the whole talks about reparations. It cannot be just you throw a bunch of money and you're done. That's not how you buy. You can buy back like a good consciousness. And I think reparations can come also from a cultural reparations is collaborating instead of looking outside, inside, and collaborating, but truly like a real collaboration. That's what is going to break certain chains and certain reflexes maybe that were acquired over the years and years and decades. And to me, that was very important as well to really have this kind of process and methodology, because that's, to me, that's the only way to proceed. I'm just a guest here. I'm just learning from you guys. I don't know anything. I wasn't born. I wasn't born in this country, so I never have the perception that a Jamaican would have. And I'm not trying to pretend I do. And that's the thing. It's like I'm here to learn.
I find that because Jamaicans are such a musical people, we're attuned in a particular way. I don't think sometimes it's so part of our lives that we don't even realize the true influence of it, that a lot of times some of the details, some of the nuances in the history are lost to people. And I've had conversations with colleagues where, we've said that, there are times when we found that people and researchers, scholars from outside of Jamaica tend to have more detail than a lot of Jamaicans. How do you see that as being part of the reality, and what do you see this exhibition as being able to help to kind of further elaborate on the knowledge that we know?
I think it's the goal of any exhibition to achieve this kind of goal. Like, if you enter a museum or gallery, like if you come out and you have learned something, it's not this exhibition in particular, but I think the difference is that here the music, Jamaica is a country of music. You're always surrounded by music. It's everywhere. It's ever present, and so you don't have to do this kind of research work that. For me, being passionate about it, I had to look for it, especially before internet. It's like you have to find a record, you have to find, this guy, who's this guy? Sugar Minot, what's that? Oh, it's really good. Then next, Dennis Brown, Gregory, And so I think that's why it gives that impression that we have to do a conscious effort of research, and then that's how you sort of learn the details, by researching. But if you live in it, you kind of don't see it's the same thing for me in France when I got friends from other countries visiting, and they're amazed by some old castle in ruins, by the road, and that's something I've grown up next to. And I'm like, oh, that's just an old ruin, and they're like, wow, that's amazing, it's from the 15th century. I'm like, yeah, but we got these everywhere, and I don't know any detail about it because I've always seen it. So it's the exact same sort of reflex, where like a historian working on that period will come and be like, oh, that was built by so-and-so. And I'm like, oh, great, I'm so glad I learned, but I never knew because it's around me.
Obviously, since I am based here at the National Gallery, my area of specialty is in the visual. And even though we have worked with multimedia, we've worked with sound and so on, this exhibition has been challenging from my perspective for the sheer volume and number of items that were involved in being able to tell the story. What challenges have you had, in the previous versions and in this one, from a curatorial perspective?
The main challenges were, I would say, but that's the same than, for instance, Herbie Miller has at the Jamaica Music Museum, is always that work of convincing people, let's say studio owners, that Studio One, it took me many years to convince the Dodd family of what I was doing and how it was valid and how their items were going to be bringing them some sort of respect, maybe. And so the challenge is always that initial talk to be like, look, what you have in your storage for years that's crumbling away, it's not junk, it's not old, it's interesting because it contributed to writing music history, but also to writing the history of Jamaica, because it's so intimately linked to music, is so part of life that it's part of history. So, and by showing them, people realize, wow, people come actually see them and are very fascinated by it. And so it creates this sort of, it breaks the ice. So after that, it's easy to do exhibitions. Once people have done one, they understand the value it brings and the validation for what they've done and their role in the history of music on the island.
It's interesting we're talking about the history of music. I think that it is something that, we have had a lot of dialogue about it, and something that has come up again in the fact that any exhibition, this exhibition in particular, because of the breadth of what we are trying to speak about, it's really impossible to talk about every aspect, every significant aspect of the development of Jamaican musical culture. I often think of these kind of spaces as being the beginning of this kind of exhibition as being a platform for dialogue. Do you agree, or do you think that there are ways to incorporate those missing elements?
Well, I think in this exhibition there's a way maybe to incorporate new elements by rotating or making an exhibition sort of evolutive.
Mm-hmm.
But really, like that's the thing. It's on such a short period of time. It's very complicated to produce any changes. But
yeah,
in a way, I think it's a lot of people are starting to come up. Like, why am I not in the exhibition? And it's like it's impossible to fit everybody who has contributed. Mm-hmm. And an exhibition is never exhaustive. But it's really hard to explain because, again, a lot of people from the music world are not really part of the museum world, and it's natural, and I want to say it's healthy, and it's almost good that the more people are going to be sort of vocal about shows that there needs to be something more permanent. Well, then you could involve progressively every single person. It's not over 6 months that you do that, it's over years and years and years.
I agree.
And there's definitely the content and the material and the people to do that here.
We're bordering on the controversial there with that one, but I do agree because this is an exhibition that's on for a finite amount of time. And when the Jamaica Music Museum is firmly established in its new space, and it has a permanent display, it can then have, like this gallery, rotating exhibitions about different artists, different periods in time, different people who've contributed, because it's near to impossible to have one space, one static display that encompasses everything. So I think that in the future, and I hope that this exhibition is kind of forming a bit of a template for what's to come in the future, that you will have a space that can incorporate all of that. I do want to add though, Seb, that it has been very heartening to work with you, because as you said, you were questioning, you approached the curatorial department, your fellow curators, with a questioning mind and not coming at it just in I am the authority and I shall tell you how to do things. And I think that for me is kind of the best collaborative way to work on any project. And I just want to end by thanking you for being open-minded and being self-aware and self-reflexive enough to see our contributions and your contributions making a final project.
Well, I wanted to be the one thanking you. No, but because really, truly, it's again, I say it's not to play like fake humbleness, whatever. It's like I am here like as a visitor, and I'm here to learn, and that's the way any exhibition about somewhere you're not from should be approached. It's like, why should I know anything? You know what I mean? So yeah, to me it was a very humbling experience, and to be able to work with such quality co-curators and places. Yeah, no, seriously, it means a lot.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Seb. I'm glad that we're able to have this conversation, that everyone will be able to share it too. And as I said, it's been a great experience.
Thanks for having me.